Hey, and welcome to Nobody Told Me with Mike and Blaine. And I tell you what, I'm excited about today. I'm excited about two things today. I really am. One, we're talking about negotiation. I really got a good story about how I got involved with negotiating. And two, guess where I'm going to be next week about this time?
In my yard with a beer. Well, I'll be able to have a beer. If someone wants to buy us a beer online, they can buy us both a beer and have it in my yard.
That's right. That's right. I'm actually going to travel from Texas over to Scottsdale, and I'm going to meet up with Blaine for the first time in person. And we're going to have a beer together, right? We're going to have a beer together. He's going to get to meet Courtney, and it's going to be a good time just all the way around. So I'm excited about next weekend.
Yeah, me too. This is going to be super fun. And I was going to say, hopefully the weather's good, but it's always good here. It's just like sun. And I was going to say 23, but that's Celsius.
Yeah,
75, whatever the conversion is there, like Canadian coming out. But yeah, it's going to be beautiful. And I know you're going to the golf tournament, which is just a really interesting and fun experience. So yeah, you're going to love it.
It is going to be I'm going to say the very first real PGA tournament that I've ever been to. And it's kind of a bucket list item of Courtney's. One of the reasons is I guess the 16th hole is one of this, it's just the craziest, called the loudest hole in golf, right? Where they're just on you. So if you shank one on that hole, you can expect that golf fans will not be civil.
You can hear them. You can hear them from across the golf course. And for all the years I've been to that tournament, I'm not sure I remember watching a golfer. So it's a different experience. And I kind of like golf, but I'm not much of a golfer. So it's more the experience for me to go. So you probably get more out of it than me, but it's a ton of fun.
Well, my hope is that I'm going to add some things like this in my life while I'm there.
Nice. Yep.
So what are you drinking today?
I'm drinking. And it's funny because I look at the can that or the bottle you just, and it somehow feels a little bit like mine in a way. I am drinking Hoppin Frog, okay. And there's this frog in here. Hoppin Frog's out of Akron, Ohio. And I will tell you, I picked up another beer. I was about to do it, and I looked where they're from, and they're from Texas. And I went, nope, I'm not touching a Texas beer because Mike's going to want to do them. So I went with Hoppin Frog, and this is called the D.O.R.I.S the Destroyer Double Imperial Stout, and D.O.R.I.S stands for Double Oatmeal Russian Imperial Stout, and it says right here, aged 5 times longer for a super deep finish.
That is crazy.
It's quite, and it's got this cool frog in the front end. And I hadn't heard of Hoppin Frog till I just picked one up about a month ago. It was just like, I don't know, it was like there's some anniversary release. I'd never even heard of the guys. And it was really good. And I went, oh, okay, these guys actually make some really good beer. So I've got this and another really heavy stout in my fridge, and it is delicious. And it's just like inky, syrupy, thick stout. It's really delicious. But it's a heavy one. It's like 10-12%. So I'll be negotiating with my words by the end of the show.
I can imagine, right? I can imagine.
What do you got going?
I tell you, I did something different, right? I've been on this amber kick, and I almost hate to say it. I'm a little embarrassed. All right, so because I went to Trader Joe's, and I never go to Trader Joe's, okay. Right? So I used to call it just bougie beer, but I saw this one, and it started kind of off with, I mean, you can't see, but it's kind of like an iridescent type of coating across it. So it's kind of cool when you're holding it. Maybe not so much on the TV, but it's called Thirsty Goat. Nice. And it's by Thirsty Planet, and they're up in Austin, Texas, right? So I stayed in Texas where you didn't. Nice. You know, at least you're not, scarping up on my Texas beers here. I'll get through them. But yeah, it was a little goat. It's sticking its tongue out. It's an amber ale. I hadn't seen it, but they have so much information on their label. A lot of things that you don't see. Even, I mean, the batch number. What to serve it at, what to keep it at. It's 6.8, so I should be able to get through it pretty good. I mean, not 10 like you.
You'll be carrying it by the end, I think, but
I'm excited about it, right? So, but yeah, as soon as I put it in the car, my 14-year-old's like going, "Yeah, you're bougie. If you're buying that kind of beer now, you're too bougie."
Well, I will admit, like we do have a Trader Joe's not too far from us, and I kind of like it because they got these like chocolate peanut butter cups, the dark chocolate. I love dark chocolate. Those things are so good. Like I'll go there just to get the junk food. So because they got some really legit junk food in that place.
That's rich. You can really feel that. That's rich.
Right.
It's good. So well, good. So we're going to talk about negotiating. And I'll tell you what, I can remember, I'm going to say probably I was 19, but I must have been 21 because I negotiated for beer. So I'll say 21 years old. I'd read some book on negotiation, right? Like we all do when we're young, we're trying to learn how to sell and those type of things. And it was that concept like you talked about offline, which was you can negotiate anything, right? So I'm going to try it. I'm having a pizza. I'm going to get more toppings. I'm going to get a beer. I'm going to get something more. So yeah, and I hadn't realized that. Well, I probably shouldn't do that at the pizza parlor, right? But I did. We ended up with a pitcher of beer with our pizza, and I think it was just to shut us up.
that's still like you just have leverage. And it might be that you're loud. That's whatever the leverage is, right?
Yeah, that's right. Just if you don't stop talking about it, would you stop if I just give this to you? Yeah, I'll stop. That's our deal.
My introduction to negotiation, and I'll never forget this, was the one and only time I had a job and worked for someone else. My first job out of university, I was with a design company, it was so long ago. This is going back over 25 years. But what I do remember is at some point, I think I must have went in and asked for a raise or something like that. And I remember one of the partners, she looked at me and she basically said, well, come in on Monday and you tell me why. And paraphrasing something along those lines. All I remember is driving home, and I was probably like, I just graduated university. I don't know how old would I have been, 23 maybe or something like that. And I knew I was in so far over my head because here was the partner that had done a lot, I'm sure, of negotiation. And you don't get anything by her. And I'm like, I am so overmatched. What did I get myself into? So I got in my car. I drove over to the bookstore and I went to the business section, and this is back before stuff was online. And so I'm looking through the business section and I bought 2 books. And the first one was on negotiation. It was something along the lines of what they don't teach you in Harvard Business School about negotiation. It was not exact title, but it was basically that. The other book I bought was Negotiation According to Harvard Business School. Same thing. The title is not exact, but I'm like, this is like Harvard Business School and what they don't teach you there. And I read them cover to cover that weekend before I went in on Monday morning. And I went in and it was really quite a good experience because I had my shit together. And I sat there and I it's like, okay, I'm gonna let her do this first. And I'm gonna present this, but I'm not gonna put a number out. And I had all these things, and I know when I left that meeting, I had got my raise, and I was really happy about it and really happy about the way I performed. Now, she might have just railroaded me, and I would never know. Right. But because I wouldn't know, but I felt like I'd presented my case right. I had negotiated properly. And that was my first introduction into negotiation. It became something that, as the years went on, I realized I'm just naturally using it all the time. And not just dollars, right? It's just, how do you get to a win-win? How do you get to a win-win with people, and how do you present your ideas, right?
Well, I mean, think about it. I mean, your entire life, you have to negotiate whether you like it or not, right? I mean, you have to negotiate with your parents to go outside, and they won't let you go outside until you clean your room, right? That's a negotiation. Yeah. You got to clean my room. You get to go outside. It's always something. So I mean, I think it becomes kind of a natural skill, but what you learn is some verbiage behind it, and I'll call it verbal judo, right? Because you say this, I say that. You say this. So and I think that's one of the things. I think if you can master verbal judo, and that's an actual thing, I think, and verbal judo is the art of deflection.
Okay. Yeah.
and you use statements like, well, I appreciate that, but I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying, but
Yeah. Yeah. It's not committing. Yeah, I could see that because it's things that I think, I don't know if I don't think I probably was ever I'm probably cheap, but I wasn't ever a talented negotiator, but things that is now sort of natural to me. And I can't even help it. And I'm like, even my team, I'm always asking, oh, talk to them about get a deal on that, get a deal. And I'm always encouraging them, but I sometimes I feel like maybe I should just talk with them because I just like, I want to make sure we're getting a fair price, right? Or we're getting a fair deal, right?
well, yeah, of course, everybody wants that. I mean, I think I'm less anymore. There, I beat people up less now, and it could be because maybe I'm better at asking for what I want.
Yeah.
Whereas before,
Yeah.
I didn't really know what I wanted, so it felt weird. And if you do negotiation poorly, it's a terrible experience for both people.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, it just really is. It's just you feel like the guy just never gives in, never gives up. And then I mean, just it's
Yeah.
weird.
And like, to me, the negotiation is not to win. Negotiation is to have a win-win. That's how I look at it. Is it's you've come to a good conclusion when everyone can walk away and be happy with, like, that makes sense. That's a fair deal. And but I will tell you that where if I feel like I'm getting like someone's trying to railroad me, this stops. I can't, you know, spidey sense tingles, the lizard brain comes out, and I'm like, no, that's not happening. And then I'll tell you, one of the very first cars I ever bought, I all I remember is I came to a deal with the guy, and the final part of the deal was, this is the price, all in, whatever it was, whether it was a good deal or not, whatever, that was the price. And then I got into the office to sign the paperwork, and they tried to slip in $300 for something, and I can't remember what it was. It's $300, but the principle to me was we had a deal.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure my wife would still bring this up because we were in that office for over an hour. And I'm
Wow.
like, I'm not budging. Like, I'm like, I don't care about $300. We had a deal. And I got my deal. By the end, I got my deal. They like knuckled under for their $300, but it had nothing to do with the dollar. It was that, no, we had a deal. You don't break that deal. And I got that, I got the stubborn streak that comes in me sometimes. And I'm like, if I think someone's bullying me or being unfair in any way, I don't handle that very well. And maybe it wasn't the best use of time, but I'm like, no, you're not, that's not happening. Right.
But I think buying a car has come a long way, right? It's always the stigma about, negotiation. And it used to be that way. I mean, I remember in the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, I hated it, man. I just hated going in there because I knew it would take so long. And they just had a process. You went in, you talked to a guy. He always said, no, got to go ask the manager. And they go back and forth a couple of times. And it just took so long. Now, I bought a car, recently, and it was all done online. I pretty much said what I wanted. 2 emails back and forth. It was done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I spent 15 minutes in the dealership, and that was to sign the paperwork. That was it, and pick up the keys.
I'll be honest with you. The last car I bought, it's a 2020, so a couple of years ago, and it's a set price. And I'll tell you, I feel so much more comfortable with that because I wasn't negotiating. You know what the negotiation was I'm taking her home today because I don't have time to come back tomorrow. I'm not driving all the way across town to pick this up. Get this ready. I'm driving her home today. That was the only negotiation. And that actually was really nice because, boy, it sucks dealing with like back in the, I don't want to call them the good old days, but when you had to do all that negotiation on cars, it was awful. And I really appreciate the fact where it's just like, yeah, this is the price. All right.
Yeah. Well, and this one wasn't just the price, but it was, they pretty much got price dialed in anymore, right? For the most part. I mean, they can't just make up pricing. If anybody has internet connection, they can figure out a range. If I can buy it in this range, I'll be happy because that's what the market tells me it is.
Yeah.
Right. So, Oh,
And some and some brands and some dealers they don't negotiate price, and I think that's
yeah.
kind of nice. They may have a higher profit margin, but I'm like, yeah, at least I don't have to mess with it, right?
The thing I did negotiate, really super happy about is 8 years bumper to bumper, including maintenance. I don't pay
Nice.
anything on this car for 8 years. Just take
Nice.
it in, fix it.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
and to me, that's worth it, right? Because I mean, my last vehicle, it seemed like right after the warranty is when the a couple $1,000 repairs hit every year. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
just to keep it going. So I
I,
at least bought myself a little time.
I still remember that, and this is one of my first, I think, experiences with negotiation in a way, and I still find it just hilarious. My dad never, I don't think ever, if I asked him now, he would think he was a bad negotiator. He'd probably never even thought about it. I'll never forget. I was maybe 15 or 16 years old, and we had this a Datsun 510 hatchback car that my dad was selling. And we'd had it, and it was, I don't know how many years old it was, probably 8 years old or 6 years old or something. Like, it was an older car, like it not old, but it was older, right? And it was a really good learning experience. So this guy came in and he took it for a test drive, and I was in the back seat, my dad's in the front seat next to the guy, and we're driving all over town, and whatever, like the guy's doing his test drive, and the entire time, the guy's rattling off everything that's wrong with the car. Well, I don't know if it's a little bit sturdy, and well, I'm not sure about the mileage, and he just is going on, and I'm in the back seat going like, oh man, this car is like, ugh, like how the heck is he going to sell this thing to this guy?
And he was setting his pitch.
Yeah, and so my dad doesn't say a word the entire time. This guy just bitches about the car the entire time, and we get back to our house, and we park in front of the house, and the guy's like, he's just like, I think he's proud as a peacock. He's just like, man, I have just, set my case free, right?
Yeah.
And he did his last, I don't remember what it was, but he's like the last just like slam of the car, like, and I don't like the color or whatever it was, right? And my dad just looks at him, he goes, and I can't remember, it was an 8-year-old car, he was like, it's a used car, do you want it or not?
Yeah.
And that, and the entire, everything this guy had said, it just was flushed down the toilet right there. And the guy sat there for a second and went, yeah, I'll take it. And I'm like, nice. Like, that was like sweet, and it's just because it's probably more just frankly, probably just a German thing to do. My dad's roots. I'm turning into an old German guy too. And that's just how he responded. He's like, do you want it or not? It's like, that was brilliant.
That's funny because that's a variation of the takeaway close. When you go, yeah, it's probably not for you. I can see where this wouldn't work. You take the deal away from them to bring it back online.
Yeah, he used the strategy that there's actually a name for, and he wouldn't know. But it stuck in my brain. It's stuck in my brain all these years, and it just was just that frankness, and it's like, oh, he got his deal, and it just like he just shut the guy down right there, and I thought that was just brilliant. So yeah, stuck in my mind.
Yeah, well, here's the the ones that stick in my mind. I was on the SWAT team, right, for the Highway Patrol.
Okay,
they call it CERT, Special Emergency Response Team, and it seemed like 3 or 4 calls in a row we got called out for hostage situation. People would, have their girlfriend in a hotel room, or another guy, we thought the girl was in there, but really he was in there by himself with a dog. It's a weird situation, right? To think that somebody's being held hostage behind just a door, and you're on one side of the door and they're on the other.
Yeah.
And but I can remember the negotiators on how they just let things play out, right? Because it's different than just getting a good deal. You're still looking for a win-win, and the win is, hey, we want to stop the situation, de-escalate it, and this guy, for everybody, right? And so, and not get killed. So some of the things I saw and heard them give up were just craziness. Like a guy, all right, there was a guy, we got there, we're in the yard, we're surrounding the house, and as we're getting into position, a gunshot goes off inside the house. Well, at that point in time, you don't know if the hostage killed, or he shoot himself, whatever. and the door comes open on my side, and a dog gets thrown out into the yard. He just shot his dog and threw the dog out in the yard.
Yeah.
Like going, oh yeah, this guy, he's not thinking right? He's not thinking right today.
Yeah.
So for about 4 hours, they used one of these, what they call a throw phones. Have you ever seen those?
No.
So they cut off all the power and they cut off everything to the house.
Okay.
They give a throw phone, and what that is, they put it up, they throw it onto the porch, and they say, hey, listen, pick up the phone. That way we can talk to each other. Right. And it's a listening device and a way to communicate as well. It's just on a cable, right? There it is. It's just secure communication.
Okay. Yeah.
So they establish communication with him, and they say, hey, what's going on here? Well, I mean, what's going to take to end this? He goes, all I want to do is drink this beer and listen to Bob Seger, and I'll come out. So for like 4 hours, we let the guy, talk to him every once in a while, but let the guy just drink his beer, listen to Bob Seger. And then as he's coming out the door, he came out my side. I was on the basement level, came out my side. The door opens up and another gunshot goes off. As the door opens up, I'm ready to pull the trigger. And he shot himself in the calf, threw the gun outside before he could expose his body, threw the gun outside. And I run up and I handcuff him because he comes out and falls into the yard. And I handcuff him and he goes, what? You guys didn't shoot me? I'm like going, no, he didn't have a gun. He threw it out in the yard. Right? He threw it out in the yard. He goes, well, I wasn't going to let you guys shoot me. That's why I did that. So he shoots himself. So we didn't shoot him after he listened to, Bob Seger and drank all the beer.
Oh, man. Okay, your experiences are they're many levels above mine for that's a frightening experience, man.
No, but the lesson's the same, right? The lesson's the same as in both parties negotiated. He wanted this. We said, okay, well, if we give you that, will you give up? Yeah. And he did it. He just gave up weird. Like he had to shoot himself in the calf. And he thought, well, if I shoot myself in the calf, I won't die.
Yeah.
He just won't have a calf muscle.
That's just a bizarro set of logic there.
Yeah, so he wasn't thinking right. It's 3-4 in the morning, of course, after a lot of beer that night for him.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of brought down the mood, didn't I? I shouldn't have done that.
But I got a story. I got a story you'll get a kick out of. That's really like interesting, and it just makes me think like, we'll have more conversations when you're in my yard over beer, because you've done some interesting things. But I got a story that I haven't thought of this. It hasn't come into my mind in years and years. But there's a friend of mine, and his dad was a salesman, and so he sort of grew up, I guess, learning about sales. And I don't know if it was just natural, but he had learned some tactics or whatever. And I'll never forget. I think I don't know if we were in high school or university. When this happened, and I don't remember, it's so long ago, I don't remember all the details. All I remember is that he said, one of us was looking for speakers or a stereo, something like that. Mm-hmm. And we went to this shop in town that was known for being I'll be honest with you, it's kind of known for being the sleazy salesman. So I'm not going to say which shop it was, but I think they're still known for that today. They're still around. So I remember my friend said, he said something along the lines of, I learned how to deal with salesmen, and probably from his dad. Yeah. And I will never forget this. I don't remember the preamble. A salesman came up to me and, he's kind of like, the whole, like, I'm going to really, what are you guys looking for? And, like, I'm so-and-so, what's your name and all that. And so we're standing there and we're probably like 19, 20-year-old punks in there. But he must've thought, wow, they're coming in to buy something, they got money. And so my friend, and I'm going to mention names here, Sheldon, if you're listening to this, I don't know if you remember this, but I want to know how you managed to do this, because I remember it like it was yesterday. I will never forget this. I don't remember the preamble, but he had negotiated with them and he had set this guy up. The part I will never forget is we were walking through the store, and I remember Sheldon kind of looking at me and going, watch this. And I shit you not, he walked through the store and he had got this guy already sort of by the whatever. And he walked through the store, he goes, how much for that? And you can see the price tag, the big, the sale price. And the guy would tell him, well, how much for that? How much for that? And he just walks through this, how much for that? And this guy would give us this base price as you walk through the store, and he'd look at the price tag and he'd be like, $500 and be like, we can do it for 300. And he just pointed at stuff. And then he just went, well, we'll think about it. And then we left and we got in the car and he's just like, yeah, no, I just wanted to try that out. And I've never seen, I've never seen anything like that. That was, but it was set up before, but I'll never forget. He just he had this guy broken, and I don't know how he did it. He just had this guy broken, and he just went, how much for that? How much for that? And the guy just was like spewing off numbers all the way through that were way lower than the price. So
that's crazy.
That was, I always thought that was such a cool, yeah. And who knows? Maybe they were actually like not even that good at prices, but at the time I was absolutely blown away by that.
Yeah, because he was getting, commitment for lower than what was advertised, right? No lower than right there. I mean,
much lower because
right?
Enough that I was going, wow, look at that. Like I couldn't get that, like in my mind, I'm like, there's no way I would get that price. And it was just like magical to me. So.
Yeah. So, in the Army, I spent all that time, and I spent a lot of time in Panama and Honduras. And I still have time sharing in Mexico, and to a certain extent, there's a lot of negotiation that happens.
Yeah.
Right. Just, on everything from buying a little ring trinket, to negotiating cab rides. It doesn't matter. There's a lot of negotiation that happens. And I think, that this is an original thought. Of course, other people have said this, but the culture is different. It's an expectation that you will haggle, right? The price is a suggestion. It's a way to start a conversation. And up here, that's just not the case. More people prefer, just tell me what the price is. Even if it's a 200% markup, people are like, yeah, seems fair. And I'll tell you, I do well, first of all, let's set the premise, right? If we're going to teach just a little bit during this, let's set the premise that negotiations, I don't think, can start until two people want something, right?
Yeah.
I think you have to start there, right? Meaning that what your friend did, he really didn't start a negotiation because he didn't want it. He was just seeing if he could negotiate.
Yeah.
But the other person assumed that he would buy something if he gave him a good price.
Yeah, exactly. Assume that. And you know what, like, I agree with you. Like the culture in North America isn't really one of negotiation. And yet at times I've tried to negotiate, I've tried to negotiate in the Bay in Canada, like Hudson's Bay Company, which would be like kind of going into Target and trying to negotiate. I've tried, right. But it's not a culture of negotiation here. And I know, like I've of course been to Mexico, and there seems to be a lot more negotiation there. I remember when I was in China, we would go through the markets there in Shanghai and Beijing and all that, and we would negotiate, and we would think we were brilliant negotiators. And I'm sure we got schooled, absolutely schooled. I still remember buying this hat that was the ugliest fake fur hat that has been brought out at the odd block party at after midnight. But I remember them like, well, how much for that hat? $40. I'll give you 3 for 2. And I think they actually gave it to us. And then I thought, oh, we started too high. Like, cause we still got schooled. And, cause we were so in over heads, but at least we tried. At least we negotiated all this stuff that was just like basically garbage. Like I still remember getting to customs and the customs guy looking at because I had added up all the stuff I'd bought, and he says, and it was just way too much. And he's like, what did you buy? And I still remember just looking at him. I was just disgusted with myself, and it's just the biggest pile of shit. And he just starts laughing and goes, "Get out of here." But I tried to negotiate everything, but it's not like they're not going to sell to you if they're not making a profit. so they made a profit on everything, and probably a massive one. So I felt like, that was one of those ones where I got the prices a lot lower, but I'm pretty sure I still got schooled really bad.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that in Mexico, I mean, I just bought, last time I was in Cabo, we got these 2 straw hats, right? It's just a straw sun hat,
Yeah.
but hand painted with both Texas A&M on one and Baylor on another. And
Yeah.
they didn't have them hanging there. They either had to go get them from somewhere else, or he painted it that day, because we had to come back and pick them up
Yeah.
the next day. So he had somebody paint it overnight, or
Yeah.
pick it up somewhere else overnight. Who knows what they did? But so a product that looked like that, and it's pretty cool. Matter of fact, on our website, I'm wearing one of the hats in the rotator up at in the header image that we got.
Okay, nice. I think I remember that one.
And I think they wanted like 30 or 40 bucks a piece, and we ended up with like 2 for 20 or something like that. And I'm like going, that seemed fair. So anymore, I'm like going, I think I'd negotiate less, especially when I'm overseas or somewhere else, because I'm like going, they probably need it. And what I was told by one of the guys in Mexico was, he goes, the best time to negotiate is like the last couple of days before the month ends, because everybody's rent is due on the 1st. So they try to accumulate as much cash as they can and make rent for their booth or whatever, wherever they're at in the shopping center, or the market.
Yeah.
So,
and honestly, I can't help it a little bit with myself. Like right now, we've got to replace some appliances here. We just got a new fridge, and I got to get some other appliances. And I like, one of the first things I told my wife is, yeah, no, we'll pop in with 3 days left at the end of the month. Yeah. I can't help it. Like, I don't need to, I don't need to try and eke out that extra bit, but it's like my brain goes into autopilot now, that it's just like, I just got to make sure I'm getting a fair deal. It's not like I'm trying to get this, like, steal from them, but you know what? They're not going to agree to something where you're stealing from them. But I always have that feeling like I just feel like I have to have a fair deal. And that goes through everything. Right. And it's, but I don't think that's a bad thing when you're running a business. You just want to make sure it's fair.
Yeah. So, all right. So here's something I learned. I've been part of 5 transactions now, right, on both the buy side and the sell side of a business. And one of the things I've learned is to never negotiate just the top line price. So I'll give you $1 million for this, or 2 million for that, or whatever, 300,000, whatever that. Just stop doing that. Set up top line price, kind of what you're asking for. But when you negotiate, you want to negotiate line by line, which is, okay, I have accounts receivable. I'm going to negotiate. If you give discounts, give it on things line by line. Like, I have inventory. Well, you might have $100,000 worth of inventory. Start at, 90% or 80%, right? Because you don't want to, but that's where you start giving discounts. Is, I'll give you 80% on the inventory, 80 cents on the dollar is what you can buy that for. And that's the same as giving the discount. But if you go line by line, you'll really make more money in the long run, because you'll give up less in each specific category. So your AR, the last thing I gave up was like 3 months operating expense. So if I had $10,000 a month in operating expenses, I'll give you $30,000 off, because I know if I'm going to liquidate this or have to resell it and go through this process again, it's going to take me another 3 months to go through it. So,
yeah.
I'm just saying that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean,
really
we're talking about negotiation, and I wanted to bring it back because we're talking about personal stuff. Yeah. But this is like beers, business and bullshit. So,
yeah, we should be talking business.
So I wanted to bring some business in. So it's when I'm coaching or consulting with business owners now, it's about, hey, when we put your business up for sale, we're going to set a bottom line, which we don't sell, or we don't tell the buyer, and then we're going to set the market price. And when we negotiate line by line all the way down. And if it falls below our bottom line dollar that we know we can liquidate the company for, we don't take the offer. Right. Yeah. So it kind of sets some limits, some guidelines, and then you got all these things you can negotiate in the middle.
Oh, that's really interesting. I remember just it reminds me of when I used to, during my creative agency days, we would negotiate every once in a while on, what's interesting is we would do a fairly similar thing. If we gave a bid for a job, it was detailed. There were a lot of
That's right.
lines. Now, we never broke down our set costs, but it'd be like photography on this location, this videography, this, like, and we had like all of those lines. And I think it cut down on negotiation because they could look and they could go, no, okay, there's a lot of stuff there. So it wasn't just it didn't feel as easy for them to go, yeah, a lot 5% off the top. Where do you want me to take it? Do you want to lose this or this? And
Yeah.
so giving that detail line by line helped, but it also then if they were too tight on budget, then we could actually negotiate not just some random price. You could say, well, maybe if we move this location to here, it would be less money or whatever. You had something tangible to exchange, right?
Yeah, so I did the same thing when I was doing janitorial and then hotel staffing. I didn't have to do as much unless it was about minimum number of hours,
Hmm.
right? If they didn't want to put a minimum number of hours in, the rate was a certain amount, a la carte. I only need you a couple days. Well, it's more expensive because you make me do more work. But if you guarantee a certain minimum hours, they give you a lower rate, and that's part of all the trade off, the win-win, right?
Yeah.
You win because you get the lower rate. I win because you're using me more often. The same thing happened when we did custom dev stuff at Finagraph, right? It's like going, hey, if you want a project manager, you want testing, you want all these things, here's the number of hours we built into this contract.
Yeah.
How many less hours do you want?
Yeah. Yeah. When you make it tangible like that, it's a lot harder you think it would be easier because you could, but no, it's actually harder because it's like, what don't you want?
That's right.
Yeah. Do you not want wheels on your car? Like, it's like you have to take something that's tangible out, and it makes it a lot trickier. And the interesting side is it's like you're actually being more transparent. And
That's right.
if you're transparent, it's to a fair degree, it's harder for them to really negotiate that.
Well, and here's the thing: if you negotiate that way, when we're talking about hours, on the other side of it, if you're paying for the hours, you should always audit that, right?
Yeah.
Look at time reports. Look at whatever it is. You should audit the fact that I was guaranteed X number of minimum hours of work. Show me that that's how they put in. And then what I would also ask for is show me, audit one person, show me what other projects they worked on during that time period this week.
Oh,
You're like,
interesting.
that person went through 270 hours that week.
Yeah. Doesn't quite add up. Yeah.
Right. So I was like going, so I try to look at it from both sides. I'm a buyer, or am I a seller?
Yeah.
And you want it to be good for both of you. I think that's where this is coming out. You want it to be good. And then you have to compromise. And you said it one way where it's a win-win. I've heard it another way where it's both people aren't quite ever satisfied. You're okay with the deal.
Very true.
I mean, in a win-win, you're like, okay, well, it's good enough. But nobody's
I'm being quite optimistic when I say that, but you're right. It's like, it's probably a pretty decent deal when you're not quite happy, but they're not quite happy. Like,
that's
never going to be 100%
the best sign
content.
of a deal, right? It's like going, neither one of us is quite happy. And I think what's funny is that I've heard some like judges that are up for nomination. They'll say the same thing when I have a ruling. Nobody's ever quite happy with it. That means we did a good job where it was fair for everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
It's one of the first one of the biggest lessons I had in business when I started my creative agency. I started initially small, and then I joined another group, and we started to grow with it, but we landed a contract and it didn't go well because we had not. Here's another topic. We should do an entire show on contracts. It might sound dry, but it is the core of either you're making money or losing money. And it's scope creep is real. And we ended up, and I will say this is like, I don't remember how long this was, 20 some, easily 20 some years, 25 years ago, 20 some years ago. I can't remember how long it had been. But it was a government agency. I'm just going to say that. And we signed a contract that was, we signed without really reading it and without understanding it, which is why we should do another topic on that.
Yeah.
What we found out is that they could just change their mind. Just literally change their mind, and we didn't have a leg to stand on. And so we had built an entire interactive piece on, I can't remember, it was some kind of mapping thing, and they changed their mind on the topic and said, we want it was just a completely different topic because somebody decided they wanted a different topic. We'd already built the whole thing. That should not be allowed, legal, anything, but we had signed a contract that basically said you're allowed to change your mind whenever the hell you want. And they would have killed our business. Like, our business would have been done. And when we went back and we realized, and of course we were irate, and we went back and we looked through the contract and went, oh no, that was the biggest lesson on contracts there. So the next meeting we had to go in, and I knew we had to negotiate an exit from this, because they would kill our young company. We would be dead, and they didn't care because they had to report up the levels, right? And
see, that's even worse for if a government kills a company, right? Especially
and
a
it won't
small
be
company. Right?
It is an absolute travesty, and it wouldn't be the first, and it won't be the last. And
right.
it's so I have my feelings on that, because I've seen it firsthand. But this lesson taught me. And I will also say that there were later on, when we did some government contracts, we held their feet to the fire because we had the contract in place. So yeah, this is a topic, jot it down. This is one we have
Right.
to deal with. But we had to negotiate our way out of this contract. And what was interesting is, when we went into this meeting, I knew we had to negotiate our way out of the contract. They didn't. They thought we wanted to stick with the contract. And I went back to all my, I never gave the answer, but I kept pushing the problems. I let them come up with an answer. And I remember at one point in the meeting, I almost burst out laughing, because they gave us our exit clause, and it was brilliant. And they thought they were holding our feet to the fire, but I had somehow, through the conversation, they had worked themselves into a corner, and I got us out of that meeting as fast as I could before anybody else on my side said anything. And we walked out, and I still remember saying to my partner at the time, I'm like, those guys just gave us our exit. And he was still mad. Like, he was so frustrated about the whole meeting. So what do you mean? And I started to go through the points that they said, and he went, oh yeah. And we went back and we had our exit. We had negotiated an exit, and they didn't even know it until we basically fired them as a client. And but we are very fortunate, because really, like, in a way, those negotiations probably, for such a young company, had our company in their hands. They probably could have killed us. And we managed to find our way out through negotiation. And we learned from that. And we were very, very careful going forward after that.
I'm going to agree with you on that. It should be a topic, because what you just described was, we're negotiating, but it's not just about money. It might be about time. It might be about expectations, deliverables, those type. I mean, it's not always about money. it could be about other things that impact you significantly.
Yeah. Right? And in this case, we had a boilerplate contract from the government. I'm pretty sure it was probably one sentence in there that we did not read over, did not have a lawyer read over. And the fact is that I look back and I'm like, if I had a lawyer read it over, would he have recognized, or she would recognize, that is actually where you could get caught? Probably would. But when we went through it, we went, we signed that. how did we sign that? We did not. Like, that one sentence kind of changed our lives, because of basically the one sentence that said, we can change our mind whenever the hell we want. Paraphrasing, but basically that was in there, and there was nothing we could do.
Yeah, but
And
I don't even think if I would have read that, I would have said, they hired us to do this thing. Why would they change their mind? No,
yeah,
I'm just saying,
yeah,
everybody might have
yeah.
missed it. Everybody might have missed that.
Everybody might have missed it. And although, I suspect maybe if we'd had a lawyer go through and a fine tooth comb, maybe they hadn't, because later on, years later, we had lawyers go through some of the contracts with some of the bigger projects we were working on. I don't remember anything so glaring coming out.
What was it, a project?
It was a project. No, it was a project. But anyway, yeah. I'm gonna start calling it a project. We'll just use a totally different vowel. It'll be the new Wordle name or word. But it was a learning experience for us, of course.
You know what's funny is that some lawyer might have caught it though and said, "Hey, listen, if they change their mind and change the whole project, billing should start over."
Yeah.
Right? Say, okay, yeah, you can change your mind anytime. We just change the pricing back to phase one or what, phase two or whatever that is.
Oh yeah, like it, and that and you know what, they tie together, because what we learned later was to go through the contract with a fine tooth comb. But it was also the timing. I would wait till we were kind of awarded, and right before we signed, we would negotiate. Because that's the time to negotiate, because they don't want to go back. They don't want to go start from scratch. So that whole contract stuff we got to deal with. But we learned from that, and it made a lot more sense later down the road. And there were circumstances where, having dealt with that and negotiated early and made sure that the contract was the way we wanted before we signed it, saved our ass a couple times. And again, one time was with government again, because they had been during the recession in 2008 or whatever it was. The budgets had got slashed, and one of our projects got slashed, but the contract was what saved our bacon. It completely saved our bacon. And so it was it is really, really important, and they go hand in hand. We'll do a whole thing on contracts, but they don't mean anything if you're not able to negotiate to make sure that you're protecting your business. And that's the other side of it, is like, I said the win-win, but really ultimately you have to watch out for your business and your interests, and you come to that middle ground, like maybe an agreement, but more so it's making sure that you're protecting yourself and protecting your business, because a contract, if it's not negotiated right, could actually sink your business, or it could actually make you profitable and successful.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So hey, so here's what happened. All right, so those people listening, all right, here's what happened. We got on this call expecting to talk about taxes. We changed the topic right before we hit record to negotiations, because we're like nobody's really interested in how much time we spend on taxes. So I think we did okay, right? Here's what I learned, right? I mean, we're looking for win-wins, and win-win isn't that I'm totally happy or I'd smoke somebody else in a deal. It's I got what I wanted for something I thought was fair, and that person got what they wanted for something that was fair, right?
Yeah.
Even
and
if
you
we
protected
don't feel
yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And everything's negotiable. Everything. And it isn't just about dollars. It could be additional incentives. It could be, additional time. Everything's negotiable when you're looking at any type of transaction between at least two parties. So that's kind of what I'm taking away. What do you think?
You can learn things the hard way. You can't negotiate something you don't understand. It may not just be the difference between profit or a higher profit margin and not. It could literally save your business if you are negotiating right and know what you're signing up for.
Amen. So, hey, if you like this topic, comment, buy us a beer, those type of things. If you don't like this topic, well, tell us what you do like. I mean, let's go down that road a little bit, right? So tell us what you like. We'll put together something, and I'm sure that between Blaine and I, we can come up with a few answers.
Yeah, they might not be the right ones. We'll come up with something.
Oh, yeah, I didn't say they were right. Everyone to say that. So anyway, hey, good to see you again. And I will see you in person in 1 week.
Oh man, I can't wait. It's gonna be fun, man. Looking
It's
forward
gonna
to
be a lot
it.
of fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So all right. Hey, this is Nobody Told You with Mike and Blaine. You can see us on YouTube. You can buy us a beer. You can go to mikeandblaine.com. And well, you can do both. You can listen to audio, you can buy us beers, you can buy our books. Doesn't matter.
I'm still waiting for someone to buy us a beer. Someone's got to buy us a beer.
Yeah.
Even
One
if
of
we
you people
split
are
it.
going to do it. I just know they're going to do it.
Someday we'll get somebody.
All right. Maybe we need a sign.
Yeah. See if we get some sponsors of the golf tournament.
There you go. All right. Take care, man.